listen closely for the next 10 minutes. Because what you're about to hear has the power to end the cycle of hesitation, emotional trading, and comfort-based habits that keep you stuck. If you've ever blown a trade and instantly thought, "How did I screw that up again?" you're in the right chapter. If you're smart, you shouldn't be here. Yet, here you are. And that tells me something powerful. You're tired of repeating the same emotional patterns. You're ready for a shift, a real one. Before we go deeper, let me ask you something, and I want you to drop your answer in the comments. When was the last trade you took just because you needed to feel right? Be honest with yourself, because that moment, that emotional impulse, is where your new journey begins. This chapter is the doorway, a reset, a quiet space where you and I take a breath and let the noise of the charts fade for a second. Right now, you're stepping into the same psychological territory Mark Douglas walked thousands of traders through. A place where the rules shift, where your mind stops reacting and starts operating. In this audiobook, you're going to learn how to break your comfort habits, the ones whispering to you, "Just hold a bit longer," or "Get it back now," or "Don't miss this move or you'll fall behind." Those habits feel safe, but they're killing your growth. And the crazy part? You already know that. So why do you still do it? That's what this whole journey is about. Understanding the emotional machinery behind your worst decisions. Rewiring the mindset that keeps sabotaging your trades. And learning the same confidence-building practices Mark Douglas used on traders who came to him completely lost and left with clarity. But before all that, let's talk about why you're here, right now. You're here because something inside you knows you can be better, stronger, calmer, more precise. You've seen glimpses of it, the rare moments where you traded like a pro. No hesitation, no overthinking, just execution. You've tasted the zone, even if it was brief, and you want it back. Think of this chapter as the cinematic opening of your transformation, the part of the movie where the hero realizes the world he's been living in isn't the world he wants to stay in. Mark Douglas used to tell traders, "You don't have a trading problem, you have a thinking problem." And that's where the shift begins. So let me speak to you directly. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not undisciplined by nature. You're simply running emotional software that wasn't designed for the markets. Human beings hate uncertainty. Traders must embrace it. That's the conflict, the glitch in the system. And this audiobook? This is where we debug that glitch. Over the next chapters, you're going to learn how to break your comfort habits, the ones whispering to you, "Jump in early," "Hold losers," "Closing winners too fast," "Chasing moves so you don't miss out." Or maybe it's trading out of loneliness, boredom, or frustration. Whatever it is, this journey will expose it. And then we'll break it. Because breaking comfort habits isn't about forcing discipline. It's about creating internal permission, the permission to stop needing to be right, stop fearing the market, stop clinging to control. It's about accepting uncertainty so deeply that your decisions become effortless, not emotional, not reactive, effortless. Thousands of traders studied under Mark Douglas because he didn't teach trading. He taught truth. He taught how the mind grips comfort like a lifeline, even when that comfort is the reason you lose. And you're about to learn his methods step by step. So as we close out this opening chapter, I want you to think of one question, the kind that starts real transformation. What is the comfort habit that keeps sabotaging my trades? Is it jumping in early? Holding losers? Closing winners too fast? Chasing moves so you don't miss out? Or maybe it's trading out of loneliness, boredom, or frustration. Whatever it is, this journey will expose it. And then we'll break it. Because breaking comfort habits isn't just a trading upgrade, it's a personal evolution. You showed up, and that's step one. Now, it's time to move into step two. In the next chapter, we'll talk about the thing that silently holds most traders back, even the smart ones. It's the invisible enemy you've been wrestling with for years without realizing it. Comfort, the silent killer. Let's walk into it together. Listen closely for the next 10 minutes, because by the end of this chapter, you'll finally understand the emotional trigger that's been ruining your trades, the one sitting underneath your fear, your hesitation, your early exits, and even those moments where you blow your whole plan just to chase one more. This chapter will show you something most traders never figure out, that it's not the market holding them back, it's comfort, their own comfort. And real quick, answer this in the comments right now. When was the last trade you made because you just had to be right? Think about that moment. Remember how it felt. Because that feeling is exactly what we're about to break down. Now let's get into it. Mark Douglas used to say something that confused a lot of traders at first. Your brain is wired to avoid the very thing trading requires. It sounds dramatic, but it's true. Humans crave comfort. We cling to certainty. We want to feel safe, in control, and predictable. But the market? The market is uncertainty on a screen. Every candle is unpredictable. Every outcome is unknown. And every trade is a leap into randomness. But that clash, the clash between what you want and what the market is, that's where your losses come from. Let me break it down in a way that clicks instantly. Think about the last time you held a loser way too long. Deep down, you weren't holding because it made sense. You were holding because closing it meant accepting pain, accepting you were wrong, accepting uncertainty again. Comfort told you, just wait, maybe it'll come back. Your rational mind was silent. Your emotional mind was screaming for safety. Comfort won. Your account lost. Now, let's flip it. Think about the last time you cut a winning trade way too fast. You saw some profit, your heart junked, and you locked it in before the market could take it back. That wasn't strategy. That was comfort again. The comfort of securing something, anything, instead of sitting in uncertainty. See the pattern? Comfort feels safe, but it quietly destroys growth. Mark Douglas taught that traders don't blow accounts because they're unskilled. They blow accounts because they can't handle randomness. They can't emotionally process uncertainty. So they cling to comfort, even if it's killing their consistency. Let me give you a quick story. Paul Tudor Jones, one of the greatest traders of all time, once looked at an old photo of himself crying on the floor after a brutal loss. He said he hated that picture, but he kept it in his office anyway. Why? To remind himself that comfort will always try to trick him into ignoring risk. The moment he starts feeling invincible, relaxed, comfortable, he knows he's in danger. The pros know comfort is a trap. The amateurs chase it nonstop. Here's the twist, though. Comfort doesn't always feel like comfort. Sometimes it feels like FOMO. Sometimes it feels like impatience. Sometimes it feels like, I just want to get this trade back. Sometimes it feels like, I can't miss this move. Sometimes it feels like boredom. The market's not moving, so your brain tells you to enter something, anything, just to feel alive. But all those impulses are the same thing, a desire to escape discomfort and slip back into emotional safety. Now, let me ask you something, and think about this honestly. What is your comfort habit?
Is it chasing? Is it holding losers? Is it trading way too big? Is it sitting in a losing trade because closing it makes your chest tight? Or maybe you freeze when your setup finally appears because the idea of losing is too uncomfortable. Whatever it is, that habit didn't come from the market. It came from your wiring. Mark Douglas explained it simply. We're conditioned from childhood to avoid pain, avoid uncertainty, avoid randomness. But trading forces you to confront all three over and over every day. So what does your brain do? It tries to protect you by pulling you back into comfort, even if that comfort destroys your long-term results. Let me go deeper into his principles for a moment. Number one, the market is a random distribution of wins and losses. No pattern guarantees anything. No candle is predictable. Every outcome is a probability, not a promise. Number two, every moment in the market is unique. Even if a setup looks identical, the result can be completely different. Your brain hates that. It wants patterns that repeat perfectly, like a math test. Trading doesn't work like that. Number three, risk is unavoidable. Your mind wants safety. Trading demands exposure. There is no trade without risk, but your emotions still try to avoid it. Once you understand those three truths, you start seeing why comfort kills. Comfort tricks you into searching for certainty. Certainty doesn't exist in the markets, so every time you reach for comfort, you move further away from consistency. Here's the part that most traders never tell themselves. Comfort feels good right up until it ruins your year. It's the silent killer because it doesn't scream. It whispers. It reassures. It feels harmless. Comfort is sneaky. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's your advantage now. Because in this chapter, you finally learn to spot the real enemy. Not the market, not volatility, not bad luck. Comfort. Now, let's set something straight. I'm not telling you to become emotionless. I'm telling you to become emotionally aware. A trader who understands their own comfort triggers becomes unstoppable. You stop reacting. You stop forcing trades. You stop clinging to being right. You stop fearing losses because you stop chasing comfort and start embracing truth. That's what Mark Douglas wanted every trader to understand, and that's what this audiobook will teach you chapter by chapter. But before I let you go, here's your next reflection. Drop it in the comments if you're brave enough. Which comfort habit is costing me the most money right now? Be honest. Honesty is where growth begins. Now, in the next chapter, we're diving into something even deeper. Something that explains why traders repeat the same mistakes over and over, even after promising themselves they'd never do it again. You're going to learn about the emotional loop, the internal cycle that keeps you stuck, spinning, reacting, and finally blowing up your plan. You'll hear a real story of a trader who lived this loop for years until he learned to break it. Let's step into chapter 3.
Listen closely for the next 10 minutes, because you're about to discover the psychological loop that has controlled your trading for years, the same loop that triggers revenge trades, hesitation, early exits, and those "I swear I won't do that again" moments that you end up doing again anyway. If you've ever stared at the chart thinking, "Why do I keep falling for the same crap?" this chapter is your turning point. And real quick, drop your answer in the comments. When was the last trade you made just because you had to be right? Be straight with yourself, because honesty is the only way out of this loop. Now, let's crack this thing open. Mark Douglas taught that before you can become a consistent trader, you have to understand the emotional cycle that runs your decisions. A loop so subtle, you don't even realize you're inside it until your account balance reminds you. Here's how the loop usually starts. A trade sets up. You see it, you know your rules, but right before clicking, A small buzz of anxiety hits you. The what-if voice. That voice pulls you into hesitation. So you wait. And then the trade takes off without you. Now you're frustrated. You feel left behind, and that frustration pulls you into impulse mode. Suddenly, you're chasing any candle that moves. Your mind is screaming, "Don't miss the next one." Your rules are gone. Your patience is gone. Your discipline is gone. And then you take a terrible trade. It loses. Hard. Now you're angry. Embarrassed. You feel stupid. And that emotional burn triggers the next stage of the loop. Revenge. You want your money back. You want your confidence back. You want to prove you aren't an idiot. So, you push another trade. Then another. And before you realize it, you're not trading the chart anymore. You're trading your emotions. This is the emotional loop. Hesitation. Chasing. Revenge. Shame. Reset. Repeat. And here's what most traders never understand. The loop doesn't start with the bad trade. It starts with the emotion before the trade. That tiny spark of fear, or the fear of missing out, or the need to feel right. That's the ignition. Let me tell you about someone who lived this loop for years. A trader named Daniel. Not a beginner, not some random gambler, a smart guy with real skills. He studied strategies, watched every chart pattern known to man, learned order flow, back-tested setups, but he kept blowing accounts. 3 times. Not once, not twice, 3. And every time he thought the problem was the market, or volatility, or his strategy, or news events, or brokers. Typical stuff traders blame when they don't want to face the truth. But after his 3rd blown account, he admitted something painful. He wasn't blowing up because he didn't understand the market. He was blowing up because he didn't understand himself. His emotional loop ruled him. Hesitation, chasing, revenge, over and over. No matter how good the setup was, no matter how perfect the analysis. Every time he hesitated and missed a move, he felt worthless. Every time he chased a move and lost, he felt angry. Every time he lost money, he felt powerless. And every time he felt powerless, he tried to take control by forcing trades. That is the loop. One day, Daniel found a simple exercise from Mark Douglas that changed everything. Mark said, "You don't repeat mistakes because you don't know better. You repeat mistakes because your mind is addicted to emotional comfort." Comfort again. The silent killer from the last chapter. In Daniel's case, anger made him feel powerful. Revenge trades made him feel in control. Chasing made him feel like he was in the game. Hesitation made him feel safe. Every part of that loop was designed to protect him from discomfort. But protecting him emotionally destroyed him financially. When he saw that truth, really saw it, he decided to break the loop. Not by trying harder, not by forcing discipline, not by yelling at himself after every loss, but by interrupting his emotional trigger before it spiraled. He learned to recognize the early signs, the tightness in his chest, the urge to get his money back, the rush of energy right after missing a trade, the sudden need to make something happen, the pressure to be right instead of being consistent. And he made a rule. The moment he felt any of those emotions, he closed his chart for 3 minutes. 3 simple minutes. Just long enough to let the emotional wave pass. And guess what?
Within 2 months, his performance changed. He stopped revenge trading. He stopped chasing. He stopped blowing up. He finally felt in control, not of the market, but of himself. Breaking the loop is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally aware. Because once you can see your loop, you can stop it. Mark Douglas said it perfectly. When you understand your emotional patterns, the market stops being your enemy. Your reactions do. Now let me ask you something powerful, something that'll tell me exactly where you are in your trading journey. Which part of the emotional loop grabs you the hardest? Is it hesitation? Is it revenge trading? Is it the early exits? Or is it the chasing the move after missing the perfect entry? Drop it in the comments. Your answer will tell you the exact habit you need to break next. Because once you know your loop, you get your control back. This chapter was about exposing the cycle, but in the next chapter, chapter 4, we're going to take this even deeper. We're going to talk about risk. Not numbers, not stop-loss distances. Risk as a mindset. Risk as something you feel before you trade, during the trade, and after. You'll learn how Mark Douglas trained traders to see risk the way professionals do, calmly, neutrally, with zero fear. You'll hear how legendary traders like Paul Tudor Jones reframed risk so powerfully it changed the way he made billions. You're ready for that level now. Let's step into chapter 4 and start rewiring how you see risk forever.
Listen closely for the next 10 minutes, because if you've ever looked at a perfect setup, felt your heart rate spike, and whispered, "Man, what if this goes wrong?" This chapter is going to change the way you trade forever. Today, you'll learn how Mark Douglas trained traders to see risk the way professionals do, calmly, neutrally, without fear, without ego, without trying to predict the future. You'll learn the psychological shift that removes hesitation, breaks fear, and replaces emotional risk with probabilistic logic. And before we even dive in, answer this in the comments. When was the last trade you made because you had to be right? Because the moment you need to be right, your perception of risk becomes distorted. And distorted risk perception is the root of 90% of trading mistakes. Now, let's get into it. Most traders think risk is about numbers, stop loss, position size, leverage. Mark Douglas said that's only the surface. The real battle is emotional, because every trade exposes you to two deep fears: the fear of losing money and the fear of losing ego. You're not just risking capital, you're risking identity, you're risking confidence, you're risking how you see yourself. That's why a small position can feel terrifying, and a huge position can feel thrilling. It's not the numbers, it's your emotions responding to uncertainty. So let's reveal the truth that will rewire your trading brain. Risk is not the enemy. Your reaction to risk is. Mark Douglas taught traders a simple principle. When you trade, you're not choosing which trades win or lose. You're choosing how well you execute your edge. That's it. You don't control outcomes. You control behavior. Once that sinks in, fear starts to fade, because the pressure to predict the future disappears. You stop asking, "Will this trade win?" and start asking, "Does this trade fit my plan?" That small shift from outcome to process is the beginning of risk neutralization.
Let me give you a real example that changed how the greats think about risk. Paul Tudor Jones, one of the most iconic traders in history, once said something that shocked young traders. "I'm always thinking about losing money. I'm not thinking about making money." Most traders read that and think it's fear. It's not fear at all. It's neutrality. It's acceptance. It's the understanding that losses are not personal. They're a natural function of probability. Jones reframed risk by focusing not on avoiding losses, but on preparing for them, accepting them, planning for them. Because once you truly accept that losing is normal, losing stops scaring you. Here's the crazy part most traders never accept. You cannot fear something you've already accepted as part of the plan. Mark Douglas pushed traders to adopt this mindset through a concept he called probabilistic thinking. It means you stop treating each trade like an emotional event and start treating it like one in a series, like flipping a coin with an edge. Let me give you a simple breakdown. A professional trader sees a setup and thinks, "This is a 55% edge. That means over many trades, this setup pays me. I don't need this single trade to work." Amateurs think, "This trade must work, or my plan is ruined." That belief turns one trade into a life or death emotional moment. That's why fear spikes. That's why hesitation shows up. That's why early exits happen. That's why revenge trades explode out of nowhere. Because your ego is trying to protect you from emotional pain, not financial loss. Now let's talk about something that hits home. You cannot trade neutrally if your identity is tied to the outcome. If you're terrified of being wrong, you'll avoid taking the trade. If you're terrified of missing out, you'll take the trade too early. If you're terrified of losing, you'll exit too fast. If you're terrified of looking stupid, you'll double down to prove yourself. Notice something? Every fear is about ego, not charts. So to rewire your perception of risk, you must detach ego from results. Here's a mental exercise Mark Douglas taught his traders. Before placing any trade, tell yourself this: "This trade is just one out of thousands. The outcome means nothing about who I am." Say that out loud the next time your finger shakes over the buy button. You'll feel the emotional tension drop instantly. Let's go deeper. Why do some traders feel calm even during losing streaks? Why do others fall apart after one tiny loss? It's because professionals treat risk like a business cost. Amateurs treat risk like a personal threat. Think about Warren Buffett. People call him the greatest ever, but he's had years of losses, billions in drawdowns, and investments that completely tanked. The difference is, he never lets losses define him. He expects them. He plans for them. He values process over perfection. That mindset doesn't just make you a better trader, it makes trading emotionally sustainable. Now let me hit you with a question that cuts deep. How different would your trading feel if you fully accepted that losses don't mean anything about you? Your confidence? Your intelligence? Your worth? Nothing. Not a single thing. Drop your answer in the comments. I want to see who's really thinking deeply. Because the truth is, once you detach your identity from the outcome, risk just becomes part of the game. Not a threat, not a monster, just a number. Now let's talk about the final piece: fear removal. Fear isn't removed by logic. It's removed by exposure. Mark Douglas used a technique he called repetition through neutrality. It means you place many trades with tiny size so small your emotions don't activate, until your brain learns the truth. Risk is safe. Risk is normal. Risk is predictable in the long run. This is how you rewire fear, not through willpower, not through hype, through gentle, repeated exposure until your mind adapts. So let me summarize the shift you're making today. You accept losses as part of the game. You detach ego from outcomes. You focus on probabilities, not predictions. You treat each trade as one brick in a much larger wall. And you let repetition make risk feel normal. When you do that, fear collapses. Hesitation dies. Execution becomes clean, and your trading identity transforms. This chapter wasn't just about risk. It was about the psychology behind the need to feel safe and the illusions your mind creates to protect your ego. Because here's the truth. The need to be safe and the need to be right are twins. And in the next chapter, we're going straight into that destructive habit. Chapter 5 is about the most dangerous psychological trap in trading, the need to be right, the comfort habit that ruins consistency, ruins discipline, ruins accounts, and ruins traders. You'll learn how Jesse Livermore, one of the greatest traders to ever live, lost everything because of this one emotional weakness, and how Mark Douglas taught traders to break it for good. Let's move into Chapter 5 and cut the need to be right out of your trading forever.
Take a breath for a second and listen closely, because the next 10 minutes might expose the biggest psychological trap that's been sabotaging your trading without you even realizing it. Today, you're going to learn why the need to be right is the most destructive comfort habit in trading, how Mark Douglas trained traders to break it, and how one of the greatest traders of all time, Jesse Livermore, destroyed himself because he couldn't. If you've ever taken a trade, hesitated to close it, watched it drift deeper and deeper into the red while whispering, "It'll come back, it has to come back," then this chapter is going to hit home hard. So let me ask you this, and drop your answer in the comments. When was the last trade you made because you had to be right? Really think about it, because the need to be right doesn't show up as confidence. It shows up as denial, as stubbornness, as emotional blindness, and it's ruining far more traders than bad strategies ever will. Let's get straight to the heart of this. There's a moment in almost every losing trade where the chart tells you the truth, but your mind refuses to hear it. You start bargaining, you start hoping, you tell yourself stories. It's just a pullback. Smart money is shaking people out. My analysis is still valid. This is just temporary. And each story you tell is really your ego whispering, if this trade loses, it means you were wrong. But here's what Mark Douglas taught. Being wrong is not a problem. Needing to be right is. Because the moment you need to be right, you lose your ability to execute objectively. You lose your neutrality. You lose your consistency. And without consistency, trading stops being a business and becomes emotional gambling. Now let me show you how deep this goes. Most traders think they're trading the market, but really they're trading their identity. Every win feels like proof that they're smart, capable, talented. Every loss feels like a threat to their self-worth. So when a trade moves against them, they don't defend their account, they defend their ego. But your ego has never paid a bill, and it never will. Now let me take you back to a story that every serious trader needs burned into their mind. Jesse Livermore, possibly the most legendary trader who ever lived, a man who made and lost entire fortunes, a man who understood market movement better than almost anyone in history. But Livermore had one enemy he could never conquer: the emotional need to be right. His greatest losses didn't come from bad analysis. They came from stubbornness, from doubling down to prove himself, from refusing to admit he misjudged the market, from letting ego override execution. He once wrote that when he exited losing trades quickly, he thrived. But the moment he let his ego whisper, "You can't be wrong about this," he fell apart. Livermore didn't lose because he lacked skill. He lost because he couldn't detach his identity from the outcome. And if one of the greatest traders in history couldn't survive that mindset, what makes any of us think we can? Now let's break down how Mark Douglas flipped this entire habit on its head. Douglas taught traders something that sounds simple but takes discipline to internalize. Your job is not to be right. Your job is to execute your edge. Let me repeat that in a way your subconscious will remember. Being right is an ego goal. Executing well is a trader's goal. When you walk into the market with the goal of being right, every losing trade becomes a personal attack. Every stop loss feels like failure. Every red candle feels like judgment. But when you walk in with the goal of executing well, each trade becomes just another opportunity to follow your plan. A stop loss becomes proof of discipline. A scratch trade becomes a clean decision. A loss becomes data, not identity. You stop needing to predict, and you start focusing on process. Here's something I want you to reflect on. How much pain have you caused yourself because you refused to accept a small loss? Think about it. Drop your answer. Because this is where transformation begins, with honesty. Now let's get into the psychological mechanics. Why do traders struggle so much with admitting they're wrong? Because humans grow up in a world where being right means safety. Being wrong means embarrassment, shame, judgment. In school, being wrong got you punished. On the job, being wrong gets you fired. In relationships, being wrong starts arguments. So naturally, traders bring that same emotional wiring into the market. But here's the truth that separates professionals from amateurs. In trading, being wrong has no moral value. It's not good or bad. It's just math. Trading is the only profession where you can be wrong half the time and still get rich, still succeed, still build financial freedom. You just need to execute well. Let me give you a powerful reframe that Douglas used. There's no such thing as being wrong. There's only following your rules or breaking them. That removes ego. That removes shame. That removes emotional chaos. Because now the question isn't, did I win? It becomes, did I act with integrity to my plan? That's a whole new level of clarity. Now let's shift into the psychological habit you're about to break. When traders need to be right, they chase validation. They avoid exits. They move stop losses. They add size to bad positions. They revenge trade. They jump into setups they didn't plan, not because the market forced them, but because their ego demanded emotional protection. So here's the turning point. Professional traders don't protect their ego. They protect their account. They don't need to be right. They need to be consistent. And once you embrace that mindset, the habit breaks. The emotional chains loosen. You become lighter. You execute cleaner. You stop forcing trades. You stop fighting the market. You stop defending mistakes. You start trading like a business owner, not a gambler. Now let me ask you a question that will hit you in the chest. What would your win rate look like if your only goal was to follow your rules? Think about how much stress would disappear, how much clarity you'd gain, how much less emotional every market move would feel. Now we're getting to the core. The truth is, the need to be right comes from one thing: control. The illusion of control. The fantasy that you can force an outcome through willpower.
And in the next chapter, we're taking that illusion apart, piece by piece. Chapter 6 is all about training your mind to accept uncertainty, to stop fighting randomness, to stop gripping the market with white knuckles, and to finally step into the calm, neutral state that Mark Douglas called the zone. You're going to learn how to release control, how to embrace uncertainty without fear, how to enter the market with emotional detachment, and you'll get a practical mental exercise that will rewire the way you experience trades. So whenever you're ready, let's continue your transformation. Let's step into Chapter 6 and start building the mindset that allows true consistency to begin.
Before we begin, here's your promise for the next 10 minutes. You're going to learn the exact mindset shift Mark Douglas used to help traders stop overthinking, stop forcing trades, and finally enter that calm, neutral state he called the zone. Because if you've ever stared at your screen trying to predict every tick, if you've ever hesitated on a clean setup because something felt off, if you've ever thought, man, why can't I just trust my plan and execute, then this chapter is your turning point. And to get your mind open right from the jump, let me ask you something. Drop it in the comments. When was the last trade you made because you had to be right? Seriously, admit it. Because that's the exact mindset we're about to dismantle. Let's dive in. Most traders hate uncertainty. Not because uncertainty is dangerous, but because uncertainty exposes the truth. You're not in control. And humans, especially traders, crave control more than anything. That's why people blow accounts. That's why they over-leverage. That's why they chase. That's why they revenge trade. Not because they're dumb, but because they're uncomfortable with randomness. Mark Douglas once said, anything can happen in the market. Simple words, but they cut deep. Because the moment you accept that anything can happen, you stop trying to manipulate the outcome and start focusing on managing yourself. Here's the irony most traders never see. You don't need certainty to make money. You need consistency. And consistency comes from neutrality, not prediction. Let's break that down. The market is a probability machine. Every trade is a coin flip with complex edges. It's not personal, it's not emotional, it's not moral. It's randomness applied to structure. But what do traders do? They attach emotion to randomness. They try to force meaning where there is none. They try to feel the market. They treat a single trade like a final judgment on their intelligence. This is why Mark Douglas became obsessed with teaching neutrality. Neutrality isn't being cold. Neutrality isn't being robotic. Neutrality simply means this: you don't need the market to do anything. You don't expect it to do anything. You're ready for anything and attached to nothing. That's the zone. Now let me show you how uncertainty actually works with a story from one of the most famous traders alive. There's an interview Paul Tudor Jones gave where he said, "I'm always thinking about losing money, not making it." People think that's negative. It's not. It's acceptance. It's surrender. It's clarity. Jones wasn't scared of uncertainty. He respected it. He built his entire strategy around embracing it. He knew he had no control over outcomes, only decisions, only risk, only process. That's why he survived decades in a game most people fail at within months. And this brings us to you. Because right now, you might still be trying to trade like a fortune teller, like someone who needs a sure thing before pressing the buy button, like someone who panics the moment a candle moves against you. And the saddest part? None of that has anything to do with the market. It has everything to do with your mind. Your brain hates uncertainty. So it fills the gaps with fear, assumptions, and what-ifs. It convinces you to hesitate when you should act. It convinces you to hold when you should close. It convinces you to predict instead of execute. but you're about to rewire that. Let me give you the most powerful shift Douglas taught. Uncertainty isn't a threat, it's freedom. If anything can happen, then you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to predict. You don't need to know the future. You just need an edge and the ability to execute it without emotional interference. That's the mindset professionals use. That's the mindset that builds consistency. That's the mindset that gets you into the zone. Now let me take this from theory to practice. I'm going to walk you through a mental exercise Douglas used with struggling traders. It's simple, but if you do it daily, it will change the way you feel about taking trades. Here we go. Close your eyes, unless you're driving, and picture your next trade setup. Not the outcome, not the profit target, not the win. Just the setup. See it clearly. Your entry, your stop, your risk, your structure. Now say this in your mind. My job is not to know. My job is to act. My job is to manage my edge. The market can do whatever it wants, and I'm okay with that. Feel that shift? That lightness in your chest? That's your ego letting go. That's control loosening. That's neutrality forming. Now visualize the trade stopping you out. Feel the discomfort. Feel the resistance. And now say, a losing trade is not a wrong decision. A losing trade is part of the game. Good. Now visualize the trade winning. Feel the excitement. Feel the dopamine. And now say, a winning trade does not make me right. A winning trade means I followed my plan. This is how you detach your identity from randomness. This is how you build emotional resilience. This is how you train your mind to accept uncertainty without fear. Do this before every session and watch how different you feel. Your breathing will calm, your decisions will sharpen, your trades will flow. You'll stop needing to control the market and start controlling yourself. Now let me ask you something, and drop your answer below. What part of uncertainty scares you the most? Be honest with yourself, because that answer is the source of your emotional friction. As we close this chapter, here's the truth you must take with you. You can't eliminate uncertainty. You can only accept it. And the moment you accept it, trading becomes easier, cleaner, quieter, more professional. You enter the zone not by controlling the market, but by releasing control completely. And now that your mind is learning to accept uncertainty, you're finally ready for the next step. In Chapter 7, we're going to build discipline the way Mark Douglas trained his students through daily rituals, microjournaling, tracking emotional triggers, visualization, exposure practice, and routines that hardwire consistency into your nervous system. This is where your transformation becomes practical, predictable, repeatable. So whenever you're ready, step into Chapter 7. Let's turn your mindset into a discipline machine. Listen closely, because the next 10 minutes will give you something most traders never develop. A disciplined system that rewires your trading identity from the inside out. Not motivation, not hype, not try harder. I'm talking about daily rituals Mark Douglas used to take undisciplined, inconsistent traders and turn them into calm, execution-driven professionals. If you've ever told yourself, I knew what I was supposed to do, so why didn't I just do it? Or, man, how did I screw up the same mistake again? This chapter is your turning point. You're about to learn microjournaling, emotional trigger tracking, exposure practice, and the exact pre-session visualization routine Douglas drilled into his students. But before we go deeper, let me ask you something, and drop your answer in the comments. When was the last trade you made because you had to be right? Because discipline doesn't fail because of strategy. It fails because of emotion. And today, we're breaking that cycle wide open. Let's get into it. Most traders think discipline is a character trait, some superhero quality only a chosen few were born with. But Douglas taught the opposite. He taught that discipline is a muscle, a predictable, trainable system. A set of habits you build every single day, not a mood you rely on when the market gets chaotic. He used to say, you don't rise to the level of your trading goals. You fall to the level of your trading habits. And today, you're going to build those habits. Let's start with the first one, micro-journaling. Now listen, I'm not talking about writing novels. I'm not talking about poetic self-reflection. I'm talking about a 30-second ritual that rewires your emotional patterns. Before your session starts, write down 3 things. What emotional state you're in right now, what you want your emotional state to be during trading, and what rule matters most today. It might look like this. I'm feeling a little anxious. I want to be neutral. Today my job is to follow my stop loss. Why does this work? Because when you label your emotional state, you weaken its control over you. This isn't spiritual fluff. This is neuroscience. The moment you name your emotion, your brain stops reacting and starts analyzing. And professional traders analyze. They don't react. Now let's move to the second ritual, emotional trigger tracking. This one is huge. Every trader has triggers. Fear triggers, frustration triggers, greed triggers, distraction triggers. Some of you get triggered by missing a move. Some get triggered by seeing green and wanting more. Some get triggered by boredom and start forcing trades. You need to know your triggers like a pilot knows switches in a cockpit. Because once you identify your trigger, you can interrupt it. Here's what Douglas had his students do. After every session, write down one moment where emotion pulled you away from your plan. Just one. Not 5, not 10. 1. Maybe it was hesitation. Maybe it was impulsiveness. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was revenge trading. Circle that moment. Identify the emotion behind it. And write the sentence, "This emotion appeared. I noticed it. Next time, I will respond differently." This is how emotional patterns break. Not through force, but through awareness. Next, exposure practice. This one is uncomfortable, but it's life-changing. Here's how it works. Every day, deliberately take a small, planned loss. Not reckless, not random. A controlled loss with tiny size. Let your mind feel it. Let your body feel it. Why? Because you're training your nervous system to stop fearing loss. You're exposing yourself to the sensation until your brain realizes, this is not danger. This is normal. This is the same technique therapists use for phobias, and it works beautifully for traders. Loss stops being emotional. It becomes information, neutral, just part of the game. Now let's talk about the ritual that ties everything together. Pre-session visualization. Not the cheesy, imagine yourself rich stuff. I mean something specific, practical, useful. Here's what Douglas taught. Visualize yourself executing your rules. Visualize yourself feeling neutral. Visualize yourself closing trades without attachment. Visualize yourself accepting losses cleanly. Visualize yourself ignoring distractions. Visualize yourself acting like a professional. Your brain doesn't know the difference between real experience and imagined repetition. So if you rehearse professionalism, you become it. Think of Olympic athletes, pilots, surgeons. They perform at a high level because they don't react emotionally. They perform because they've rehearsed the behavior so many times it becomes automatic. Your discipline comes from the same mechanism. Repetition creates identity. Now let me give you something powerful. A question that could change the way you trade. What would your trading look like if you only acted on your rules and nothing else? Think about it. Drop your answer, because that is the direction you're heading. Let me give you a real-world perspective from a trader you probably know. There's a story about a discretionary trader who kept blowing accounts. He had experience, he had skill, but his discipline was built on emotions, not habits. One day, after another blown account, he approached a senior trader for help. The senior trader didn't give him a strategy, didn't give him indicators, didn't give him special setups. He gave him routines, rituals, structure. He taught him to journal, to track triggers, to rehearse neutrality, to analyze behavior instead of results. Within months, his performance stabilized. Within a year, he became consistent. Not because he became smarter, but because he became structured. And that's exactly what you're doing here. You're building structure. You're building discipline. You're building the internal systems that separate the amateurs from the professionals. But discipline isn't the end of the journey. It's the foundation. What's next is identity. Because you can have discipline, but if you still identify as an impulsive trader, a fearful trader, a hope-driven trader, your habits will always fight your identity. And the next chapter, chapter 8, is where you reshape that identity completely. You'll learn how traders shift from emotional reactors to professional thinkers, how they detach ego from every decision, how they build a calm, resilient internal voice. And you'll hear a real story of a trader who transformed himself using Douglas's frameworks. So whenever you're ready, let's step into the next level of your evolution. Let's shape your identity into a trader who thinks, executes, and succeeds like a professional.
Listen closely, because in the next few minutes, you're going to learn the one shift that turns an impulsive trader into a professional risk manager. The shift that separates emotional, ego-driven decisions from clean, rule-based execution. And if you've ever felt like you're two different people, the disciplined version of you before the session and the reckless version of you during it, this chapter is gonna hit home. Because today, we're talking about identity. Not strategy, not indicators. Identity. Who you believe you are when you click the button. If you're smart, you shouldn't be here. Yet you are. Let's fix that. Before we dive deep, tell me this. Comment below, when was the last trade you made because you had to be right? Let's get into it. Becoming a professional thinker starts in the mind, not the chart. Mark Douglas taught something radical, something most traders don't want to hear. Your results follow your beliefs, not your analysis. Most people come to the market thinking, if I just learn more, I'll trade better. But the pro knows the truth. If I become someone who follows rules, I'll trade better. Your identity is the hidden engine of your execution. An impulsive trader can learn the best strategy on the planet and still sabotage it. A professional thinker can use a simple strategy and absolutely crush it. So ask yourself, who are you when you trade? A gambler with a chart or a risk manager with a plan? Identity shift number 1. From emotional reactor to risk manager. The impulsive trader thinks, something is happening. I need to act. The professional thinks, my job is to manage risk, not chase feelings. One of Douglas's core teachings was this. You don't trade the market. You trade your beliefs about the market.
When your identity is built on needing to win, you act fast, emotional, and sloppy. When your identity is built on risk management, you act slow, deliberate, and detached. This shift isn't intellectual, it's identity level. You're not a person trying to follow rules. You are a person who follows rules. Identity creates action. Action creates outcomes. Outcomes reinforce identity. Identity shift number 2. From "I hope it works" to "I execute my edge." Mark Douglas didn't teach confidence through winning. He taught confidence through neutral execution. Professionals don't hope, they execute. They don't measure success by the outcome of one trade. They measure it by whether they stayed aligned with their identity. It's simple. If you follow your rules, you win, even if the trade loses. This is how real confidence is built, by acting like a professional before you feel like a professional. Story: The trader who switched identities. Let me tell you a short story about Aaron, a trader who had all the technical talent, but zero consistency. He blew 3 accounts in a row. Not because his strategy was bad, but because he couldn't control himself. He'd freeze when he needed to exit and jump in when he wasn't supposed to. One coaching session, he told his mentor, "I feel like I'm fighting myself every time I trade." His mentor smiled and said, "You are. You're trying to trade like a professional while still identifying as an amateur." That hit him. So the mentor gave Aaron one exercise. Every morning, say out loud, "My job is to execute rules, not emotions." And every night, review only one thing. Did I act like a professional today? Not profits, not entries, not exits. Identity. 3 months later, Aaron wasn't just trading differently. He was different. He stopped forcing trades, stopped revenge trading, stopped chasing highs. His equity curve smoothed out, not because he became smarter, but because he became someone who executes. Identity before strategy. Identity before discipline. Identity before consistency. Identity shift number 3. Developing the calm, resilient internal voice. Here's what most traders don't realize. Your self-talk determines your actions. The amateur voice says, "Don't miss the move. You can't be wrong again. Fix the loss right now." The professional voice says, "Wait. Follow your plan. One trade means nothing." You don't need to eliminate emotions. You need to upgrade the voice that speaks over them. Douglas believed neutrality is a skill, a trained response. It's the voice that whispers, "This setup is either valid or it isn't. Either way, I'm good." The more you repeat that voice, the more it becomes your identity. Identity shift number 4. You act from your rules, not your feelings. Professionals don't try to be disciplined. They are disciplined because their identity demands it. Think of Ray Dalio. His entire success came from one habit: radical reflection. He doesn't run from mistakes. He hunts them. He studies them. He builds rules around them. Why? Because he identifies as someone who values truth over comfort. Comfort is the amateur's identity. Truth is the professional's identity. So when your rules say exit now, the amateur says, "Yeah, but maybe it'll come back." The professional says, "Exit, next trade." Identity over emotion. The question that changes everything. Mark Douglas used to ask traders one simple question. Who do you want to be when you trade? Not, what setup do you want to use? Not, how much do you want to make? Who do you want to be? Because the moment you decide, and I mean truly decide, your behavior adjusts automatically. Your identity is the thermostat. Your actions are the temperature. Set the thermostat higher, and the room rises. Try this identity exercise today. Do this before your next trading session. Say out loud, I am a professional risk manager. My job is to execute rules. My job is not to be right. My job is to think clearly. Then enter your session as the person who said those words, not the person who fears being wrong. Try this for 1 week. You'll be shocked at how different your trades look. And here's something I want you to comment below. If the market could hear your self-talk, would it call you a professional or an emotional gambler? Be honest. The truth will set you free. Leading into the next chapter. In this chapter, you learned how identity shapes every decision you make on the chart. But identity is just the foundation. Now we move into something deeper, something almost invisible, something that gives elite traders an edge without changing a single technical rule. In the next chapter, you'll learn how psychology sharpens strategy, how emotional clarity turns into execution clarity, and how traders like Ray Dalio used reflection to build precision. Let's step into Chapter 9, Strategy Through Psychology, the Invisible Edge.
Listen for the next few minutes, and you'll discover the part of trading that almost nobody studies, yet it determines almost every dollar you'll ever make. Ever lost a trade and instantly thought, how did I screw that up again? Ever caught yourself breaking rules you swore you'd follow? If you're smart, you shouldn't be here, yet you are. Let's fix that. Because in the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn the truth every world-class trader eventually discovers. Your psychology builds your strategy. Your emotions execute your strategy. Your habits protect your strategy. Before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Comment below, when was the last trade you made because you had to be right? Let's get into it. Strategy doesn't make you consistent, psychology does. Most traders obsess over entries, indicators, and setups. But you and I both know the real problem isn't strategy. If strategy was the answer, every YouTube trader would be retired by now. Mark Douglas made it painfully clear. It's never the market, it's your relationship with uncertainty. You can't outperform your emotional patterns. You can't outanalyze your comfort habits. You can't out-backtest a lack of discipline. You don't trade your system, you trade your state. When your state is calm and clean, your strategy works. When your state is emotional, your strategy collapses. Comfort habits are the hidden killers of great strategies. You know them. Holding losers because it hurts less than closing them. Taking early profits because you want relief. Entering early because waiting feels uncomfortable. Revenge trading because your ego feels attacked. Oversizing because you want to shortcut the journey. These aren't mistakes. These are comfort behaviors. Automatic patterns built to reduce emotional discomfort. And here's the brutal truth. Comfort destroys strategy long before the market does. A brilliant setup becomes garbage when filtered through fear. A sharp edge becomes dull when filtered through hope. A strong plan becomes weak when filtered through impatience. Comfort habits sabotage clarity, and clarity is what trading needs the most.
Psychological precision means you think cleanly enough to execute cleanly. It means no emotional bleed into decision-making, no carrying the last trade into the next one, no bargaining with stop-losses, no justifying stupid entries, no letting ego rewrite your plan mid-trade. When your psychology is precise, your execution becomes razor-sharp. You start seeing the market for what it is, not what you want it to be. You follow rules because the rules feel like home. You hold winners because uncertainty doesn't scare you anymore. You let losers hit stops because you trust your edge more than your emotions. This is the invisible edge. You're no longer fighting yourself while trying to trade the market. Ray Dalio, Reflection as a Weapon. Let's talk about Ray Dalio, not because he's rich, but because his psychological process shaped his strategy more than anything else. Dalio didn't become successful by avoiding mistakes. He became successful by dissecting them. He said he advanced the fastest when he was the most brutally honest with himself. He'd ask, "Why did I do that? Which emotion drove that decision? What belief led to this mistake? How do I make sure it never happens again?" He wasn't journaling trades. He was journaling himself. Reflection turned into clarity. Clarity turned into rules. Rules turned into precision. Precision turned into billions. Dalio's edge wasn't his indicators. It was his psychology. The way he processed truth, not comfort. The more he reflected, the more his strategy sharpened. The more his strategy sharpened, the more his emotions calmed down. The more his emotions calmed down, the more consistent he became. That's the cycle you want. Why psychological control creates consistency. Think of the market like a mirror. It reflects whatever you bring into it. If you bring neediness, the market reflects chaos. If you bring greed, it reflects punishment. If you bring fear, it reflects hesitation. If you bring clarity, it reflects opportunity. Consistency doesn't come from a strategy. It comes from a consistent mind applying a strategy. Mark Douglas had a famous line, "You don't need to know what's going to happen next to make money." But most traders can't execute on that truth because their emotions demand certainty before they act. And certainty does not exist in markets, only probabilities. When your emotions finally accept that truth, your whole trading life flips. You stop trying to predict. You start letting your edge play out. You stop forcing wins. You start executing flows. You stop being at war with yourself. You start trading clean. A story. The trader who finally saw his edge. Let me tell you about Mason, a trader who felt stuck in endless inconsistency. He had a solid strategy, clean entries, good risk to reward, high historical win rate. But he couldn't execute it. He'd hesitate on good setups, then FOMO into bad ones. He'd tighten stops when scared, and widen stops when wrong. Classic comfort habits. One day he realized something. He wasn't trading his edge. He was trading his emotions. Same chart, different trader every day. So he began one simple practice, the same practice Ray Dalio used. Daily psychological reflection. Not analyzing his charts, analyzing himself. Within a month, his execution sharpened. Within 3 months, his equity curve smoothed out. Within 6 months, he wasn't fighting impulsive decisions anymore. Why? Because he wasn't trying to fix his strategy. He was fixing the operator of the strategy. That's the edge every trader overlooks. The question that exposes everything. Ask yourself this: is my inconsistency coming from a lack of strategy or a lack of emotional control? Most traders know the answer, but avoid saying it out loud. Here's your invitation. Comment below. What emotion ruins your execution the most? Fear, greed, impatience, or ego? Call yourself out. Awareness is the first step towards dominance. Practical exercise, sharpening your psychological edge. Try this before your next session. Take 60 seconds and write, what state do I want to trade from today? What state do I refuse to trade from today? What behavior will represent the best version of me? This resets your identity, sharpens your mind, and forces precision. A sharp mind leads to sharp execution. Sharp execution leads to sharp results. This is the invisible edge. Leading into the next chapter. We've sharpened your strategy through psychology, but now we face the hardest part of the entire journey. Breaking the old version of you. The version that chases comfort. The version that avoids pain. The version that sabotages discipline to protect ego. In the next chapter, we're going cinematic, deep, personal, transformational. You'll learn how to let go of the emotional version of you that's been running your trades and step into the resilient, trained, professional version you're becoming. Let's move into Chapter 10, Breaking the Old You, the Emotional Exit from Comfort.
Listen carefully, because in the next 10 minutes, you're going to experience the psychological break that most traders avoid. The break that separates comfort-seeking amateurs from professional thinkers. Ever caught yourself clinging to a losing trade or exiting a winner too early just because it felt safer? Ever felt that tug of emotional comfort overriding your rules? If you're smart, you shouldn't be here, yet you are. Let's fix that. Before we start, tell me this, and comment below. When was the last trade you made because you had to be right? Hold on to that thought. We're going to dismantle why it happens and how to stop it. Comfort, the silent handcuff. Comfort is seductive. It whispers, stay where it feels safe. Don't push, don't risk. It lulls traders into habits that feel good but cost real money. Mark Douglas called it the emotional safety trap. It's the reason traders repeat mistakes. It's the reason promising strategies fail. It's the reason fear and hope quietly run your account more than logic ever does. Think about it. Every time you avoid a loss, chase a gain, or hold a trade for the wrong reason, you're choosing comfort over growth. And every comfort-driven decision trains your brain to crave ease instead of mastery. Breaking free means leaving comfort behind, emotionally, mentally, and behaviorally. The emotional exit, trading from resilience, not comfort. So, how do you do it? Douglas gave us a roadmap. Step 1. Recognize the moment. When you feel fear or discomfort nudging you, stop. Name it. This is my comfort response. Label it, own it. Don't act on it yet. Step 2. Shift your focus to process, not outcome. Your job is execution, not prediction. Follow your rules. Stick to your plan. Let the results be irrelevant to your self-worth. Step 3. Embrace emotional tolerance. Sit with the uncomfortable feeling instead of running from it. The body may resist, the mind may scream, but with practice, that discomfort loses its power. You replace avoidance with acceptance. You replace panic with control. You replace reaction with professionalism. Story: the trader who let go. Take Lena, a trader who struggled for years to stay consistent. Every session was a roller coaster. Every losing trade felt catastrophic. Every winning trade felt fragile. She decided to do something radical. She started intentionally noting every time she wanted to feel safe by leaving a trade early or forcing an entry. She allowed herself to feel the discomfort instead of acting. She let the loss hit her account without resistance. She sat through the unease without justification.
The first few sessions were terrifying. But slowly, she realized something profound. Discomfort isn't dangerous. Discomfort is neutral. It's just a signal. By exiting comfort, Lena unlocked emotional resilience. Her trades stopped being battles against herself. Her decisions became clean. Her results became consistent. She broke the old version of herself, and in its place, she built a trader who could tolerate uncertainty, handle stress, and thrive under pressure. Replacing comfort with emotional tolerance. Here's the practical framework you can apply. Notice your comfort triggers. Fear of loss, impatience, boredom. Write them down. Step into the discomfort deliberately. If your comfort wants you to exit, pause. If your comfort wants you to enter early, wait. Rehearse resilience daily. Use visualization. See yourself handling losses calmly, executing rules, and feeling nothing but neutral clarity. Reward yourself for process, not outcomes. A disciplined execution is the real win, regardless of P&L. This isn't easy. It's uncomfortable on purpose. But mastery is built on discomfort, not comfort. The old version of you clings to comfort. The new version of you embraces the challenge. The question that drives change. Ask yourself, which comfort habit is secretly running your trades today? Fear of being wrong, chasing a green trade, hesitating on an entry. Call it out, name it, because you cannot break what you do not acknowledge. Douglas taught, awareness precedes transformation. Once you see it, you can exit it. Once you exit it, you step fully into the professional version of yourself. Preparing for long-term growth. Breaking the old you isn't a one-time event. It's a process, a practice, a daily decision. Each time discomfort arises, each time fear whispers, each time the urge to chase comfort appears, you now have a choice. Step into comfort or step into growth. The more you choose growth, the stronger your emotional resilience becomes. The stronger your resilience, the sharper your execution becomes. The sharper your execution, the more consistent your results become. This is the final psychological break you needed. This is the exit from the old you. This is the gateway to the trader you've been training to become. Leading into the final chapter. Now that you've dismantled your comfort habits, now that you've embraced emotional tolerance, now that you've built resilience, it's time to step fully into your new identity. The identity of a disciplined, professional, psychologically aware trader. In the final chapter, we'll bring everything together. You'll get a calm but powerful send-off, a framework to implement everything you've learned, and the encouragement to commit to growth, journaling, and disciplined decision-making. Get ready, because you're about to step into the new version of yourself.
Listen closely, because this is it. The moment where everything you've learned comes together. The moment you stop being the trader you were and fully step into the trader you're becoming. If you followed along through all 10 chapters, you've already transformed more than you realize. You've learned to recognize and disrupt comfort habits, master emotional triggers, rewire your perception of risk, build discipline through daily rituals, and develop the professional mindset of execution and identity. And now, it's time to commit to living it. Before we go further, I want you to answer this in the comments. Which part of your old trading self are you leaving behind today? Fear? Impatience? The need to always be right?
Say it aloud to yourself. Naming it is the first step toward releasing it. Your identity is now your edge. All the strategies, all the habits, all the psychological tools you've learned, they're only powerful if you make them part of who you are. Mark Douglas said it best. The consistency you seek is created in the mind and lived through action. You are no longer someone trying to trade like a professional. You are a professional. A disciplined decision maker. A calm, resilient trader who lets rules guide action, not emotion. Your identity is the invisible edge no indicator can give you. Your identity is the foundation on which all your trades, all your choices, all your growth will now stand. Practical steps to cement your new identity. Here's how to ensure this transformation sticks. Journal your evolution. Each day, write one moment where you executed from your rules, not emotion. Celebrate the consistency, not the outcome. Reflect daily. Before and after sessions, ask, did I act like the trader I want to be? Small, honest reflections compound into unshakable discipline. Visualize your professional self. See yourself entering trades calmly, managing risk confidently, and exiting with neutrality. Repeat this daily. It rewires your brain faster than experience alone. Commit publicly. Share your journey with the community, your peers, or even in the comments below. Accountability strengthens identity. Keep growing. Your mind is your market edge. Continue learning, reflecting, and challenging old habits. Your evolution never ends. The power of choice. Every time the market whispers doubt, every time your comfort urges you to play it safe, remember this: you get to choose. You can remain in the old cycle of fear, impulsivity, and regret, or you can step fully into the professional version of yourself. The choice is yours. Every trade, every session, every day. A cinematic thought to carry forward. Imagine this. You're sitting at your trading desk, calm, collected. The market moves, fast, unpredictable, chaotic. You don't panic. You don't chase. You don't fight. You observe. You execute. You act from the identity you've built. That is your new reality. Your invisible edge. Your professional self in action. A final invitation. If this audiobook has helped you, here's what I want you to do next. Implement the rituals, frameworks, and psychological practices you've learned. Journal your evolution and track your growth. Commit to consistent, disciplined decision-making. Stay connected with PsychRich. Subscribe to the channel for more insights. Share this audiobook with friends who want to master their mindset, and engage with the community to continue learning. You've done the hard work. Now it's time to live it. Closing thought. Your journey doesn't end here. It accelerates. You are no longer the trader defined by fear or comfort. You are the trader defined by discipline, clarity, and identity. Step into this new version of yourself because the market will test it and your future will reward it. You've earned this. You are ready. You are now the professional trader you've been training to become.